Hello there. Chances are if you have even dipped your pinky toe into spirituality, you have heard of tarot. Now traditionally, let's say since the 1400s or so, tarot was in fact a card game. It was played with a deck of 78 cards. Each of them had symbols on them, and according to the symbols, then obviously the game would play out in a specific way. But the tarot's purpose extended far beyond a card game. Symbols are used to represent entire concepts such as spiritual principles, philosophical ideas, and social archetypes. And each card in the tarot does just that. It represents an entire concept. And as such, it is used as a tool of divination. Divination is the practice of seeing the unknown by supernatural means. For example, most people do not see the future, but tools like tea leaf reading or looking into a crystal ball can potentially allow people to see the future. Tarot cards function like that. And this is the primary function of tarot cards today. In principle, whatever card is drawn or dealt is revelatory or provides insight to the person the divination is in service of. There's no way that I could sit here today and tell you the exact single origin of tarot cards. Why is that? Because the tarot cards that you see today are a rich blend of influences. The symbolism of the cards has roots in things like Egyptian mythology, Jewish Kabbalah, Gypsy beliefs, Buddhist Dharma, Christian doctrine, and Celtic Druidic practice. Your basic tarot deck is divided into two categories, the major arcana and the minor arcana. The major arcana is the foundation of your tarot deck. They, in essence, symbolize big life changes. They symbolize the path of awareness, meaning, and understanding. The minor arcana consists of 56 cards, and they are made up of 4 suits which ultimately represent the elements. The cups, pentacles, swords, and wands. They relate directly to things of a more practical and human nature, and in general tend to reveal things that are critical to know but are more down to earth and day-to-day in nature. So used together, the major and the minor arcana actually show the relationship between the earthly realm and the spiritual realm, and that, in and of itself, unveils a story or a full concept of the situation in question. In traditional tarot, it matters what, let's say, position a card is drawn in. It matters whether you draw it reverse or right side up, because they have different meanings associated with either way that the card is drawn. There are also specific ways to lay out the cards in accordance with your questioning. We call these spreads. And so every single reader has different spreads they use, different ways they use the cards, different ways they have people select the cards, different ways they cleanse the cards. And trust me, this is one of those subjects where people who are tarot readers are seriously passionate about their craft, and they tend to get into a lot of arguments with each other about the right way to do it. Like astrology, traditional tarot is just like Pandora's box. It can literally be a way of life. You can dive so deep into it that there's like no end to the information and subtleties you find. For the sake of a video this short, there is just no way for me to summarize even a fraction of it. So if you're interested in it, by all means, dive into it. Study all the various interpretations and opinions on this highly symbolic and esoteric tool that you can find. Oracle cards serve the exact same purpose as tarot cards. They are used for divination. However, tarot is very, very structured. It is traditional. It is ritualistic. There is a way to do tarot cards with a huge tradition behind it. And so the oracle cards, you're looking at a lot more freedom. There's not necessarily the same amount of cards that there would be for a tarot deck. You don't necessarily use them the same way, even though the purpose of the cards is to divine. If I even say the word tarot, if you're tuned into the way you feel, you can actually feel the thought form of tarot in the universe. Using an oracle deck is, interesting and different because it doesn't actually come with that tarot thought form attached to it, whereas a tarot deck absolutely does have that thought form attached to it. Now, it can be beneficial and also detrimental to have the thought form of tarot attached to your tarot deck, because a thought form influences the reading. So either you want that influence or you don't. There is no inherent tradition or particular structure to the oracle cards inherently. That's left up to the creator of the cards. The decks can contain any number of cards. They're designed around a particular theme usually, such as angels or spirit animals. I love both forms of divination. I have found oracle decks that I love way more than most tarot decks. I've found tarot decks that I love way more than most oracle decks. So it's really down to the specific deck itself. But I will say that the one thing I absolutely love about the tarot deck is that tarot is designed specifically to unfold so that you see a full picture or a full storyline in those cards and the way that they are read. So it almost allows a person to see the full range of influences that are going into the situation, the whole picture. Whereas an oracle card is more of a, you're supposed to get insight. The insight's very, very quick. It's much more direct. The oracle cards tend to be about breaking patterns that are limiting us through providing insight and awareness. Even though technically there's a difference between a tarot card deck and an oracle card deck, you will hear the names used interchangeably. Why? Because they serve the very same function. They're cards that are used for divination. For that reason, assume that anytime I say tarot card in the rest of this episode, I'm referring to both tarot cards and oracle cards, any card that is used as a tool for divination. In reality, no one actually needs a tool like a tarot deck, or anything else for that matter, in order to divine, in order to see what is beyond the normal range of your senses. Why? Because you are an extension of Source consciousness. As an extension of Source consciousness, you have access to the mind of Source, or what you may call God. You can think of yourself like an antenna that is in fact built to receive the frequencies that exist in an interdimensional universe, not just your 3D reality here. It's just that over the course of the average person's life, they have tuned out to those frequencies. They still have the capacity, but it's not currently switched on, so to speak. So in that case, these tools, like tarot decks, can be a great way to tune back into the frequencies that they themselves can inherently pull in. Like any good divination tool, the ones you use have to resonate with you. They have to be a vibrational match to you. They have to speak to you. And you will notice that the card deck that resonates with you and speaks to you is the one that performs the very best for you. That being said, you don't have to just have one tarot deck. Many people have lots of them, but you will find that you will gravitate towards one specifically. It'll kind of be your go-to deck, the one that talks to you the loudest. But that being said, if you have an arsenal of decks, you'll notice that each specific deck will lend itself more to certain divination. So, for example, one of your decks may be a lot more accurate when the question being asked is relative to a romantic situation or conundrum that's going on. Another deck might perform better when you've got a situation where somebody's asking about their life purpose. So if you're interested in finding your tarot deck or decks, set the intention. It really doesn't take anything more than just sitting there, closing your eyes and saying, I need the universe to bring me the deck that I'm supposed to be with. That's pre-paving vibrationally your desire, which is going to be matched by opportunities, people, places, circumstances, and things that line you up with that deck. Then just go about your day putting one foot in front of the other and allow yourself to line up with that deck. Then, if you have got a large arsenal, anytime somebody comes to you with an issue or you have a specific issue, let yourself gravitate towards the specific deck that is calling out to you. It's a very feeling-based thing. So it's not like the cards are going to be actually verbally saying, look, I'm the one to pick up. I want you to just literally intuitively feel for the one that seems to be the most receptive or the most communicative relative to the particular issue you want to consult these cards about. Because tarot cards are a tool that assists somebody in actually connecting to that interdimensional energy, a tarot reading is every bit as susceptible to projections as your average psychic reading. This is in fact why a person who does the reading influences the reading so damn much. If you went to one reader and went to another reader with the exact same card spread, the interpretation is usually very different. Tarot is wide open for interpretation. This means it is wide open for your subconscious to project the hell all over the reading. So if you are a reader, it is absolutely critical for you to commit yourself to your own spiritual awakening and your own spiritual path so that you can become the clearest channel possible for this interdimensional information, so that you're not muddling all of it with your own projections, with your own desire for how that should go. You want to be clear as a channel. This is also why it's so important to feel out the person doing your reading if you're hiring them to do so. Realize that not all readers are created equal. I tend to find that the very best readers have a kind of deep, even dark, esoteric feel to them. They have this feeling because they are the people that are the most comfortable in the subconscious. They are the most comfortable in realms of the unknown. They have a feeling kind of like deep sea creatures. They're down in the depths. They don't have fear to go to those places. They don't have fear to venture into the unknown. So naturally, they're going to evoke a little bit of a reaction from you. Also, these people tend to be the people that have the greatest genetic influence for these particular divination arts. And genetic influence definitely is a plus. Obviously, when people are the least afraid of information beyond the senses, they have the fewest filters for interpretation. That being said, anyone who has an energy that resonates the most closely with the energies that the deck is designed to access are going to be the best at giving you a reading from that deck. For example, let's say you're dealing with an angel deck. If you're going to a reader who has a very angelic energy to them, chances are they're going to be the best at reading your cards. If you are dealing with somebody who has a very earthy, shamanic energy to them, they're going to be the best at reading your shamanic cards. If you have somebody who's got a dark arts vibration to them, they're going to be the very best at reading your shadow cards. This is because their own frequency is not so different from the interdimensional energies you are consulting during the reading, so their translation will be much more exact. In general, it's a good rule of thumb to follow your joy and to use your emotional guidance system to tell you what to go towards and what to go away from. But when we're on the path of awakening, we have to also become aware that our fear is giving us some interesting messages. There is a kind of fear which says, this is not good for you. Literally, you're going in the direction of danger. There is something that is very off here, and then you need to go the other way. There is also another kind of fear, which is the fear associated with a spiritual growing pain. It's the fear of being outside of your comfort zone. It's like, this makes me nervous in a way that going towards major change that might be possibly good for me makes me nervous. That second kind of fear is in fact the kind of fear you're looking for when you are seeking out a good reading. If we are not receiving our intuition about something that we're dealing with clearly, there's a good chance that fear has muddled the subject we're struggling to understand. Our conscious mind is not seeing something clearly because our subconscious is involved. As such, our conscious mind will have resistance to become fully aware. Because of this, you will feel a bit of anxiety relative to the reader who is able to divine clearly for your specific situation. I'm not talking about the "this is not right for me" guidance where there's actual danger, but I'm talking about the resistance to growth kind of fear. For this reason, provided that you want an actual honest reading as opposed to just a feel-good reading, I want you to go for the person who evokes that kind of fear. The good kind of fear. The kind that says, I'm like a little nervous about what they're going to say to me because I can feel that there's some sort of expansion there. Tarot cards can definitely sharpen your intuitive ability. So feel free to use them as a tool to sharpen that ability. What you will find is that over the course of time, your tarot readings will feel less like revelations and more like confirmations. As you draw the card, you'll be like, I totally knew that was going to happen. That's your indication that your vibration is becoming a match to this interdimensional information to the degree that you no longer have to rely on that crutch. And when that's the case, your cards can cease to become what you rely upon for intuitive answers and more what you seek confirmation through, or what you consult when you really, let's say, are in a place where you're completely obscured to the reality or the truth of what's going on because it's so muddled with all of your subconscious projections and fears or etc. Or when you just want to have some fun with the cards. As you use tarot cards, you become more and more familiar with the unique feeling of interdimensional beings and information, and thus more and more adept at evoking it and interacting with it and channeling it. Treat your tarot cards like a bridge between you and whatever energies in this universe contain the answer to the question you are asking. You want this bridge to be as clear as possible from obstruction so that you can cross over that bridge and the energies you're trying to access can cross over that bridge. This means you have to clear space and you also have to clear yourself. What does clearing space mean? In this context, it means setting a kind of container for your reading. It means clearing the clutter out of the space that you're doing the reading in. It means that the only objects you bring into the space for that reading are ones that facilitate that reading. Things like crystals or candles. Anything that's in that space needs to lend its energy instead of draw away from it. And the other aspect of that clearing is clearing yourself. What does that mean? Make sure that you're not, let's say, under the influence of alcohol. Make sure that you're not eating grounding foods. Definitely no meat, no dairy, no junk foods. You want to make sure you're not eating grounding foods like root vegetables for at least a certain amount of time before you do that reading. Trust yourself to be in tune with your body, to feel for when you feel clear on the inside. You want to be a clear channel for the information being conveyed. Another thing is, you don't want to be in a rush. It absolutely drives me nuts when I go to these psychic fairs where the tarot card readers are on a timer. Time is in fact an obstruction on that bridge that you're using to access interdimensional information. So don't let time be clutter either. Also, some tarot decks like to be cleared and others do not. Some are really hindered by influences and energies. Others are in fact benefited by it, just like crystals are. So use your intuition about whether you are working with a deck that is enhanced by receiving energies or that is, let's say, taken away from by being influenced by certain energies. But if you are in doubt, err on the side of clearing your deck. Some people are really, really strict about their decks. Like obsessive compulsively strict. Like nobody besides me gets to touch this deck. And God forbid the calamity happens that anybody else touches this deck, I'm going to have to clear it for as long as I can possibly clear it to make sure it's completely pure. You can let yourself follow your intuition about just how strict and ritualized you want to be with your specific deck. But obviously, as you can tell from my little monologue just then, I'm not a real fan of people becoming that attached and identified to their decks. These decks are a tool for divination. That capacity to divine is not inherent in the deck, it is inherent in you as the reader. So the more attached and identified you are with the deck, the more power you give to the deck, the less you are giving to yourself. Usually, to the degree that somebody is identified with their deck, they are that distrusting of their own innate intuitive abilities. That being said, being super attached to your deck, identified with it, and imbuing it with a ton of power attaches the thought form of the owner itself, or whatever energies they're asking, strongly to that particular object. This is why so many religious relics have maintained their inherent power. It's not really inherent, it's assigned power, centuries and centuries after their owner is in fact dead. It's why you walk into a museum and you look at the religious relics and you can actually feel what's still on them. It's because that power was handed over by the people who created and owned them. That identification can either serve the deck or harm the deck, serve the object or harm the object, serve the person using it, or act as a detriment to the person using it. Clearing a deck essentially means wiping the slate clean so you're dealing with a clear channel through those cards. So if you want to cleanse a deck or clear a deck, there's several ways to do that. Some methods are using white sage smoke and smudging the deck, placing clearing crystals on them that correspond directly to the energy of the specific deck, setting them out under the moon, burying them in the ground for a night, burying them in salt, shuffling the deck and cutting it until you feel a sense of completeness. The first thing that I suggest you do before you start your reading is to call in your guides or angels, single or plural, to provide a kind of safe container of protection for the reading itself. Now, I have a very interesting feeling towards this idea of protection energetically, because you can't conjure the idea of protection without simultaneously conjuring the idea that there's something you need to be protected against. So oftentimes, by putting ourselves in this vibration of protection, we are creating an enemy. However, if you're dealing with somebody who's already nervous about these energies of the universe, who's already feeling a bit unsafe, then they've already got the idea that they need to be protected against something. And when that's the case, calling in your angels or guides to put a protective container around you to facilitate this healing can in fact help you or that person to release resistance to that fear. When fear or the feeling of being unsafe is present in a reading, it affects that reading immensely. So I would much rather, if you're at all wavering on the side of unsafe, to ask your guide to come in and to provide protection for that healing on top of assisting the healing itself. Obviously, if you're in a space of feeling safe, what happens? Instead of being constricted, you become receptive and far more open to the information that's going to be conveyed. Step number 2, what I want you to do is to close your eyes, and I want you to get very clear about your asking. You can imagine in your mind that your being is seeing that question that you have, or even the whole subject that you're questioning, as a pearl. And as you focus on it, see that pearl solidifying and solidifying. Then mentally, I want you to imagine handing it over to whatever energies you want to ask the question to. So for example, you can imagine handing that pearl up to the universe at large, or your concept of God, or the ascended masters, or an angel. Then, each time you breathe in over the course of, let's say, 1 or 2 minutes, I want you to imagine drawing down or pulling in a kind of vortex or a channel, an open channel, for that information to be received. So you're going to pull down that channel to you, to the card reader, to the deck itself, or to all three. We do call this drawing down. The energy of this channel needs to be one of allowing. In other words, you're not taking the information or answer from anywhere. Instead, you're building a bridge to make their job of providing information easier. It's a message and a vibration of openness, readiness, and receptivity. From there, it's all about using the cards intuitively, or else following the instructions that the creator themselves set forth for that deck and how it's supposed to be used. And then it's about sitting with, receiving, and taking time to process the information that has come through in that reading. Trust that whatever card comes up for you is a direct vibrational match to your asking, and whatever comes up over the course of that reading is right for you at this time. I remember a reading I was sitting in on a while back, and the reader made a bunch of mistakes with the way they were supposed to do the spreads. But ironically, none of those mistakes were actual mistakes, because the reading that unfolded was absolute perfection for where that person was and what asking they had. So I want you to go into this with the attitude that if you ask the universe for these kinds of questions through a tarot reading, that the tarot reading itself is going to orchestrate itself according to divine guidance, and you're no longer in charge. From there, consider the information you receive to be a direct offering to you. It is then your choice whether to fully receive and make use of this information. The choice is yours. Have a good week.